In 1995, David Chase began work on a script about a gangster in therapy and his toxic mother. What would come next is 6 seasons of one of the most iconic and influential television series of all time, The Sopranos. All the fans know this, of course, and we love David for creating our favorite show of all time. But for all the respect he gets for The Sopranos, not nearly as much attention has been paid to the rest of his body of work. Though this series is of course his magnum opus, he has had a long and fruitful career outside of the show. So in this video, let's take a look at David Chase's other work and examine the man beyond The Sopranos.
Commendatore. Buongiorno. Cocksuckers.
David Chase was born in 1945, the only child of his parents Henry and Norma. His family was Italian, having anglicized their family name from de Cesare to Chase. Growing up, David had problems with his parents. His father was an angry man who belittled him constantly, and his mother was a domineering and hysterical woman. As we'll see, both of these relationship dynamics would be featured prominently in his future work. Growing up, Chase was fascinated with music, particularly the burgeoning rock and roll scene of the 1960s. He originally aspired to be a musician, but eventually decided to pursue a career in film. He attended Stanford's film school, earning a master's in film in 1971. Chase also suffered from depression and panic attacks throughout his life, another element that would be a big part of his work. Shortly after graduating, Chase wrote the screenplay for the 1972 low-budget horror film Grave of the Vampire. The film is about a vampire who rapes a woman in a graveyard, who then gives birth to a vampire hybrid that then hunts down his monster father. The film is honestly pretty schlocky, the kind of thing you'd expect a poor, recently graduated film student to work on. The only interesting thing about the film is the antagonistic relationship between the vampire and his son, again probably mirroring Chase's feelings about his own father. The film is now in the public domain, and you can watch it here on YouTube if you want to check it out for yourself. Now, supposedly, the film is based on a novel Chase wrote called The Still Life. I can find no evidence of this book online, however, and the source of the information might be based on error or a rumor that got circulated around. The credits of the film also give no mention to the movie being based on a novel. If the book does exist, it's probably something he wrote while he was in school and it was never published. Eventually, Chase found work in Hollywood, beginning his career as a writer for television. He eventually worked on popular shows such as The Rockford Files, Northern Exposure, and All Fly Away, even winning multiple Emmys for his work on these shows. He even wrote and directed an episode of the 1985 revival of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. The episode, called Enough Rope for Two, starred Timothy Daley, which is where Chase met him. Eventually, Daley would go on to be the lead of Chase's first show, Almost Grown. Almost Grown is a family drama about 2 teens who fall in love in the 50s, live through the wild and free love 60s, and by the 80s are divorced parents of 2 children. I talked about Almost Grown briefly in my Many Saints of Newark deleted scenes video. There are many elements of the show that are autobiographical to Chase himself, again, such as the conflict between an old school father and a rock and roll son, having a hysterical and neurotic mother, and a love of music from the period. They even have an episode dedicated to the Jersey riots that would later be featured in the Many Saints of Newark.
Some so-called spokesman for the colored community is predicting a riot in Newark, just like Los Angeles last month.
What the fuck?
That's Belmont Avenue.
Now, Almost Grown was cancelled before the first season even finished airing, and as such, the episodes have never been made available to the public in the form of VHSs or DVDs. For a long time, I've searched for the episodes online, but could only find snippets that people had recorded themselves in the 80s when this show came out. But one of my viewers, Devin from New Jersey 2000, was able to find the episodes archived and get them to me. We don't have all the episodes, unfortunately, but it's honestly lucky we were even able to watch the show at all. Devin has uploaded all of the episodes to his channel, so go check him out if you want to see the show for yourself. One episode I really love is Joey's 15 Minutes. Throughout the show, Joey is the weak, unsuccessful friend of the main characters. After he rescues a paraplegic man from drowning in a pool, he's hailed by his friends and the media as a hero. He's even approached to have a movie done about him. However, his joy soon turns to bitterness when the mediocrity of his life begins to set back in. The adoration he receives only making him more insecure about the failures in his life. It's very much a Sopranos type plot, and it's exciting to see Chase's obsession with psychology and inferiority complexes even this early into his work. Though Chase had a lot of success in television, he was unhappy with the medium and the simplistic way most networks told stories. He wanted to break out of television and go into feature films. However, he was convinced by his agent to try and develop a new series, as they believed he had a great television series within him.
A guy who was working there at that time, Lloyd Braun, gave me this very inspirational speech, and at that time in my life it was pretty hard to inspire me about television because I didn't like it. And he said that he had me over there because they felt that I had a great series inside me.
Eventually, he got the idea to write a show about a man in therapy because of his toxic mother, something Chase was experienced with. He combined the idea with his love of gangster films like The Public Enemy, and thus The Sopranos was born. Now, I've of course talked extensively about the show already, but in addition to being the showrunner, Chase wrote and directed the pilot episode and the finale himself. He was also featured in 2 cameos on the show, one in the episode Commendatore and one in Luxury Lounge. What makes The Sopranos so influential, though, beyond the show itself, is the writer's room that Chase created. Several of the writers on the show would go on to create massively successful shows of their own, such as Terrence Winter with Boardwalk Empire and Matt Weiner with Mad Men. Robin Burgess and Mitch Green, who Chase met working on Northern Exposure, would create Blue Bloods, which has been going on for 13 seasons at this point. Even James Manos Jr., who only co-wrote 1 episode in season 1, would go on to write the pilot for Dexter, another wildly successful show. After The Sopranos finished, Chase finally got to direct a feature film, something he had been wanting his entire career. Not Fade Away tells the story of Doug Damiano, a rock and roll obsessed teen from New Jersey in the 1960s. Hey, that sounds familiar. This is perhaps his most autobiographical piece to date, with the ending of the film showing Doug drifting away from music and into a life of film. Doug is played by John Magaro, who would also star in Chase's next film. Most interesting of all, of course, is the casting of James Gandolfini as Doug's father, Pat. Gandolfini and Chase had a strained relationship on the show, caused in part by Jim's unhappiness with the role of Tony Soprano.
The whole show is difficult for him because he's soft, kind of almost a hippie kind of a guy. And all the brutality and the cruelty, I think, the unending cruelty that show got to him. And he had to go to a dark place to get there. And he got tired of doing it.
However, despite this, they were able to work together again successfully on the film. Gandolfini plays a similar, angry, traditional father-type figure like what we saw in Almost Grown. There's also a lot of parallels to scenes of The Sopranos.
One day, you and me, we're gonna tangle.
Go ahead, try it.
Want me to try it? You lifting weights in college now you're a tough guy? I'll try it.
One of these days, you wait. I'm gonna kick your fucking ass.
What's wrong with right now, then? Huh? What's wrong with right now? Come on! Think the Army's gonna let you drive tanks dressed like a fruit?
The Army? Why would I want to join that?
What the hell are you talking about? We had a whole conversation.
What?
So, Nana was asking me today where you might want to go to college.
I don't know.
West Point.
West Point?
Yeah, that's what you said.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. You were sitting right there. You said either Harvard or West Point.
No way I'd ever have said that. I could never get in.
After this, Chase began work on a potential miniseries for HBO called A Ribbon of Dreams, the title of which was taken from a book about Orson Welles, which you can see in Not Fade Away. The miniseries would have been about the development of the movie industry from the silent era all the way to the present day. However, the deal eventually fell through when HBO only offered a limited budget for the project. David's next project would not be for another 6 years. In 2018, he sold the script for The Many Saints of Newark, a prequel to The Sopranos set in the late 1960s. For a long time, Chase was against the idea of making any kind of sequel to The Sopranos, given James Gandolfini's untimely death. However, he was inspired to do a prequel set during the era of Tony's father by Tom Fontana, the creator of such shows as Oz and Homicide. He also combined the film with an idea he had for a movie in film school about the Newark riots, something he has always been interested in.
I wanted to make a movie about 4 guys who avoid the draft by joining the reserves. And they get sent in a tank into the Newark riots. And it changes their life.
This Army recruiter who came to our school, he said they got a tank now, the M60, can drive right through a steel and concrete building.
Not all.
I want to go to a college that has ROTC.
That could cause problems later. Everybody knows the National Guard is the way to go.
Oh, great. Drive a tank into the ghetto and shoot the Temptations.
Now, I've memed on The Many Saints plenty in my videos, honestly because it's funny. But while I do think the film has problems as a Sopranos story, it's still a great film overall, and it's clear he has a passion for this time period. If they do end up making another film in the Sopranos universe, I would 100% be on board, and I really hope we see more from David Chase in the future. As I've shown here, he has had an incredible career outside of the Sopranos, and I hope this video has helped draw some attention to his other works. As always, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. Okay, so I just finalized the video and had it ready to go when news dropped that David Chase is developing a new series. We don't know much about it yet, only that it's going to be on FX instead of HBO, and it's based on one of his previously unproduced scripts. Now, going off of what we know about the man, that means it's about a rock and roll obsessed teen in the 60s and the Jersey riots. However, it actually seems to have something to do with the Witness Protection Program. Boy, I can't wait for all the clickbait theory videos about how the show is going to be about Tony in the Witness Protection Program. It's going to be great. The only other thing we know at this point is that Chase has partnered with Hannah Fidel for the project. She's written and directed a few small movies, and it seems like they were paired up mostly because they're a part of the same agency. Now, the articles keep throwing around the phrase, contemporary take. Yeah, that scares me. If you wanted a woke version of The Sopranos, just buy my spec script, Meadows Soprano Mob Lawyer. Seriously, David, I'd love to work on the show. Please call me. But we'll just have to wait and see for more news about the show. Either way, I'm excited. I'm hopeful that this will be another great series from Chase, and even if it isn't, it'll still give me something to talk about. And even if it doesn't work out for him, David can just go back to directing Mr. Peanut Butter's house.
Who's that dog?
The Chad David Chase versus the Virgin David Simon. Obsc Racing Media, Daz J Kid, Sam Cedarland, Celery Man, Jenna Marie Johnson, Brad Smith Studios, Uncle Mike, Shane Boyce, Matt Joyce, and Countess von Zarevich.